Have you been wasting your time and money on the wrong things? And where should you actually be investing your resources? Seemingly harmless choices that you make in your business can undermine your success, leading you further away from your goals. And so that's what I'm going to be discussing today with my guest, Lloyed Lobo. Now, he's seen it all. He's survived the Gulf War. He's the co-founder of the fintech platform Boast.AI. He's empowering over 100,000 innovators through his community attraction. He's been featured in some of the world's top business publications. He's spoken on some of the world's most famous conferences. He's actively involved in the American and Canadian startup ecosystem, both as an entrepreneur, community builder, and as an angel investor. And he's a best-selling author. I mean, essentially, Lloyd's journey is a masterclass in entrepreneurship and is nothing short of extraordinary. But here's where it gets interesting. Lloyd feels that he has wasted so much time and money on doing the wrong things. So we're going to be diving deep into some of those mistakes that he's made along the way, covering everything from the stupid things he's wasted his time and money on to some of the best investments he's made. So if you want to know what truly matters when it comes to investing your resources wisely, then this episode is for you. Welcome to Destress Your Business, the podcast where we show you how to get incredible results in your business without constant stress. I'm Alexis Kingsbury, a serial entrepreneur and founder at AirManual. And today I'm joined by Lloyed Lobo. Welcome, Lloyd.
Thanks for having me, man. We have some great mutual friends, Greg Head, Melissa Kwan. They've said great things. And, love what you're doing with AirManual, because one of the hardest things, especially as a bootstrap entrepreneur, is to find time, man. You can't afford to buy all those expensive tools, right? As me being a bootstrap founder for a very long time and then going into the whole realm of the capital world, the funded entrepreneur, when you have funding, you come from this world of, hey, each employee needs to be outfitted with the right tools for productivity. And it always starts with the best in class recommended by the whole investor network, which is a Salesforce and so on, right? Because there's a specific stack for VC-backed founders. It makes board meetings and everything easy, data pulling, etc. But that becomes so expensive, it becomes like thousands of dollars per employee, hundreds into thousands of dollars per employee. But as a bootstrap founder, you don't have a lot of resources. And a lot of the times it's like manually strapping stuff together and stitching and taping stuff together to make things work. So love what you guys are doing at AirManual to give people back more time in their day. Time is your biggest leverage as a founder.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you. That's very kind, Lloyd.
Hey, he didn't ask me to say that, right?
No,
I
indeed,
fumbled a bit because it wasn't rehearsed.
No, that's really kind. Thank you. Thank you for that. And I suppose that teases up nicely for the big topic that we're going to be diving into is essentially time and money, right? Those are resources that as business leaders, we're continually having to balance. And in fact, I remember reading that the top responsibility or the main decision that you've got to make as a leader is essentially just allocation. It's just resource allocation. Where are you putting time? Where are you putting money to achieve the things that you want to do?
Definitely. I think one of the hardest things when you're starting out, right, is you need to be like a pirate. You're poking fingers, you're sticking elbows, and you're doing whatever you need to get customers, to deliver customers. Ultimately, in a company, you exist for two reasons. And people don't realize this, right? We get caught up so much in the unicorn porn of fundraising and Silicon Valley and media. You as a business exist for two reasons: to deliver customers value and in turn get value back into your company. So you exist to make money while delivering value to the customers. Everything else is in support of that, right? And so in the early days, if you look at the journey of a company, especially a startup, there's 4 phases. First phase is validation. So what do you do when you need to validate an idea? You need to talk to customers. You need to outreach, right? A lot of people get an idea and be like, you know what? I'm just going to build this thing and throw it out there and maybe people will use it. Don't do that, right? we're in the age of generative AI and low code, no code, and even bro code. When I say bro code, meaning you can beg people to use you. So, building an audience is always going to be hard. So, say you have an idea. What's the first thing you need to do? You need to validate this idea. How do you validate the idea? Figure out your ideal customer profile,
Mm.
right? Now, how do you land on an ideal customer profile? There's 4 steps to that. When I was trying to figure this out, it always felt throwing spaghetti on the wall. But when you've seen some success, then it turns into a framework. So for me, it's like, hey, do I understand this problem space? Is it my personal problem? Do I understand the customer? Do I love this space? Because if you hate your customers and hate the space, building anything significant is a long freaking slog of ups and downs, right? You may not sustain for the long haul. See, with me, we built Boast, we built the traction community for our audience, which is founders and entrepreneurs. I wrote a best-selling book for the same audience. It's been a journey of 10 plus years. If I hated that audience, I wouldn't be able to sustain. The second thing is, and figuring out ICP, is it a small but growing niche? A lot of people try to niche up, right? Like, oh, let's pick
Mm.
the biggest market. The thing is, when you try to be everything to everyone, you're mediocre to to everyone. So you got to niche down, because then you get closer and closer and closer and more familiar to the customer. And then, of course, you can always go up from there. Every TAM eventually increases, right? It may be small today, but it goes up and up. And then, is there ease of access? Now, you may love this audience and it may be a small but growing niche, but if you don't have the ease of access, you keep pounding the pavement and you get nowhere, you don't have a business. And the last one is propensity to pay. The same thing. If they don't pay you, you're done. Right. So figure out your ideal customer profile, understand their circle of influence, right? Who do they fund? Meaning, what are the tools they pay for so you can partner with them? Who are the influencers in the space? So who do they follow? So you can maybe invite those influencers in your podcast to give you social proof. And where do they frequent? What platforms, what blogs, what magazines, where do they hang out, basically? And so once you understand the ICP and their circle of influence, start hitting up through referrals, direct, to get as many conversations as possible, right? The leading indicator of validation is your messaging is crystallizing and people are having conversations with you. The lagging indicator, the goal of validation, is you get maybe 4 or 5 customers to pay you out. So in those days, what it is, you can't really afford a sales force or anything like that, right? Like, I use lightweight tools like Google Spreadsheets for the longest time. And like, now there's tools like AirManual. But nonetheless, you need a database, a
Mm.
CRM, right? You need a CRM, and you need a way to outreach those people and make sure you have notes and tracking in the place so things are top of mind. Combination of spreadsheet and outreach tool and a way to stay on top of things in your calendar. Very simple, light, right? Like, I'll pause there for a second, Alexis, if I'm going the right direction.
Yeah, no, and I think as you say, in that first stage, as you say, if you group it into 4 basic stages, when we're talking about the validation stage, in terms of how you're investing your time and your money, it's, as you say, like, you've got to put a load of time into doing that validation. And I've seen in my own businesses and others that I work with, often that can be scary. And so I see business leaders avoiding having those conversations at all costs. I've fallen into that trap myself, and I think every time I regret it. And then the real value comes down to those conversations. I think, as you say, you start to see it crystallize. You can feel it. You can feel it in the person's reaction to you, and you keep on iterating until you're starting to get the sales. Are there some perhaps specific examples of where you've seen time and money spent in that phase that, and maybe yourself or others, that you'd say, yeah, you're completely wasting your time and money?
Yeah, here's where you waste, right? A lot of people, and I'll tell you this, man, and you know this, pontification is the death of all progress. Everyone's like, I'll read this book and then I'll start the company. I'll freaking, sign up for all these tools and then I'll start the company. Man, like, it never happens, right? There's always going to be something, right? Like, perfection is the enemy of done. What you need is reach out. Like, I have an idea. Day one. Okay, maybe you don't have a customer base. So figure out this ICP, ideal customer profile. right? And now your job is to reach out to all of them. So your first step is look at your WhatsApp list and look at your email contact list and look at your LinkedIn list and start reaching out to them. Look at your network and say, hey, I'm solving X for person Y. Do you know anyone in the space? Or directly hit them up
Mm.
and follow up and follow up and have some conversations. And your conversation is what you're optimizing for, not the tools, right? I think where people waste time is waiting and pontificating in the early stages. They keep delaying or like saying, okay, we'll build it. I have a general idea. No, go have 100 conversations, right? Go have 100 conversations. This is B2B, right? If you can't have 100 conversations, how are you going to sell 5, right? And if you can't sell 5 as a founder or pre-sell 5, you can't hire any sort of mythical creature to come and sell for you. And I've gone through this pain, right? One startup numerous years ago before Boast, we hired this magical VP of sales. The problem is when you don't have product market fit, right? And I'll define that in a second. But when you don't have product market fit and you hire some mythical creature to come and sell for you, they're used to quotas and established processes, right? They're not like somebody who'll come and figure out the messaging and then talk to customers, identify the pain point, and pivot your product. They are used to a set process and a set commission and close ratios. They're not going to come and create the playbook for you. So it becomes really hard. And then they don't make commissions and they quit, right? Your job, the best skill I tell people, the best skill you can learn is learn to sell as a founder. I'm an engineer, but my first job I took was cold calling for a startup. And since then, I only progressed up the startup chain. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I was told, this is the best skill you can learn. Everything from convincing your spouse you're not going to bring money to convincing early customers that buy my stuff, although it barely works, to convincing employees to work on low pay, to eventually investors and media. It's all communication. And as you scale, you got to communicate every waking moment of the day to evangelize people on your mission, your vision, or else the messaging, the vision gets lost, right? As you add more and more people. So I think, the time wasted in the early days is we put off the key thing, which is talking to customers. And we established at the beginning, why do companies exist? To deliver value to customers, right? There's a value exchange between your business and the customer. That's why you exist. So expedite that as quickly as possible. We're in the age of no code and generative AI. And it's funny, I'm advising a friend. This couple is, they're engineers and they're career corporate people. And they were like, okay, we're going to invest some money to build this. And I put them on a different track, which is talk to people. And then they talked, and that idea that they started with, they invalidated a number of times and they landed on a different idea. And then they're like, okay, maybe I'll hire a firm. I'm like, don't hire a firm. You can buy the user experience online for different tools. Just modify it to yourself in Figma, and then go back to those same people and do a click-through demo and use very little low code to power it. And they did it. And they're like, you don't realize till somebody puts you in the right direction, right? Because a lot of the time it's like, oh, I need to build something to put in people's hands. Don't. Your last option should be spending large sums of money, right? Get people to pay you. So I think the waste here is people avoid talking to customers. And to make your life easy in terms of talking to customers, you need to get lists and tools that will help you stay on track. So you're reaching out to maybe 50, 100 people a day and trying to optimize for that many conversations a week, like 50, 100 conversations a week, right?
Yeah.
That's the reality. So then the next phase you go into from there is like, let's say you got 5 people to pay you to try it out. Like validation. I've talked to lots of people, pipelines building. You don't want to take 100 customers, even if the opportunity exists, because if the product doesn't work, you're screwed, right? So you need like 5 maybe early adopters, innovators to try it out. Tied to this is then product market fit. What is product market fit? Now, for venture-backed companies, it may mean a lot of different things, right? Oh, your NPS score is high and everything else. But as a bootstrap company, Alexis, you know this. If customers leave you, you can't eat, right?
Yeah.
So the goal of product market fit is high retention, maybe near 100% NRR. And so what is the leading indicator of retention? It's engagement. people sign up and they're using your product. If somebody signs up for an annual contract, is not onboarded, and they're not using it, performing the core action, say, like, let's say the core action of your product is do X task once a week, but they're not doing it, you're done. Or it's like do X task every day. So whatever it is, figure out what the core action of your product is, meaning my product wouldn't exist if the user wouldn't be performing this, and track that as a leading indicator. A lot of founders do not, a lot of people in general do not track leading indicators, and then they just hope why this outcome never happened. Well, every outcome has a goal, right? Like it has a finite goal and has a number of steps for it to happen, those leading indicators. So you need to watch that. And product market fit to me as a bootstrap founder is customers who pay me do not leave. And for me to track that, the usage, are they performing the core action, is key. Growing users who don't complete the core action of your product is like empty calories. It feels good, right? Say I sign up for an annual contract, I barely use it. You know I'm not going to get value. So end of the year, when time comes to cancellation, if it's small, like a small fee product, they may not cancel for 1-2 years. But if the price is high, or there's some finance person watching this, it's getting canceled. Then the next phase, again, here now, you've probably gone from like a spreadsheet based system to a more automated system, right? Maybe something like AirManual, like, you're doing a lot more demos, etc. Now at product market fit, what you've done is you've been a founder who's talked to hundreds of customers. You've documented the playbook of what messaging sinks in and what messaging resonates. And you've outlined the playbook. Hey, I need to have 100 calls to get 5 clients. The first call goes like X. This is the perfect messaging, right? That's maybe the discovery call. Then I do a demo. Then I do a close kind of thing, 3-step or 4-step, whatever it is. You document it. Now I think, you go from an individual contributor founder to becoming a manager. Maybe you'll hire 1-2 sales reps. I would recommend like at least 2 so they can compete with each other. And you give them the playbook and you have them shadow your calls, then you shadow their calls. All of this needs to be documented, right? And then you're tracking, like, how many calls, how many of them turn to, how many calls, emails, how many of them turn to like discoveries, and then how many go to demo and then go to close. All right. And essentially, maybe even at this phase, you're doing a combination of network and outbound brooding, right? Brute forcing. And then the third phase after product market fit is go to market fit or product channel fit. You figure out one, a repeatable, scalable channel to get, keep, and grow customers, to acquire customers. Now, if you are a B2B startup, that could be like, you may be building community in parallel to outbound, or it's like just a sales team, or maybe it's events, online, offline events, whatever way it is to get leads. If you're a product-led company, which is more self-serve, easy to try, easy to buy, easy to cancel, then you might need to basically leverage the full funnel. It's not as easy as hire a demand gen person and run some ads or do some events, build community, like, because the journey of the customer is managed entirely within the product, right? Like if you look at it, a B2B sales-led product, you sign them, then it goes to customer success. They hand walk them, or they manually onboard them, or there's a whole onboarding and check-in process. But when you're inexpensive, sort of product-led, easy to try, easy to buy, easy to use, easy to cancel, your product needs to do the CS work, right? And so it's almost like you need a person who understands growth marketing on your team if one of the founders don't. Because, okay, we get somebody to sign up. How do I put the right hooks so they get time to value and quickly onboard? And once they're onboarded, how do I convince them to keep coming back? Like, what is the right messaging that you need to surface in product that triggers them to use XYZ, right? How do I get them to refer other people, et cetera, right? So there's a complex game there. But nonetheless, once you figure out a repeatable, scalable way to acquire customers, then as a founder, now you're ready for scale, right? And a lot of founders think, oh man, I started a company, I'm CEO. No, you're not CEO. Your validation, you're an individual contributor. Now you hired a couple of people and you're at product market fit. You're a manager. Behave like one. You cannot abstract so out of the business, right? You need to be tactical. Then you get to product channel fit, and you are a VP. You're still involved in the brass tacks. Now at scale, you have one kind of channel giving you one kind of customer who comes to your product for one kind of value. One. And here now what you can do is hire other VPs, and your business is virtually coin operated. This might take years, right? Your validation maybe 6 to 8 months, your product market fit maybe 12 to 18 months, and your product channel fit may take another 12 to 18 months to 2 years. And nonetheless, now you hire VPs around the table and they coin operate your business. They will be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to add fuel to the fire, get more of the same kind of customers, meaning keep growing this TAM that we targeted, and keep adding more value to the same product, and keep exploding the channel, because no channel is finite, right, for a long time. And then you as a founder now become an actual C-suite. You strategize. And your job now is to not spend all your energy with the coin operated people, right, who are putting one to get four, right? Like, they're running the vending machine. Give them the direction, let them run the vending machine. You got to go back to being a founder. At scale, you got to figure out either a new product or a new market or a new channel, right? A new customer base or a new channel. And you can't distract the vending machine folks you've hired. Like, I'm not saying vending machine or coin operator to be rude. I'm saying the scale guys, the Navy, right? They're really good at taking something that's working and exploding it. And now you got to figure out a new market, a new channel, a new product, right? Because every company that gets to 100 million revenue has more than one product. And usually that en route to 30 million, they're already thinking about the second product. At 50, it's probably firing. So they have a second product, they have a second market, they have a second channel. So it might be like, I'm going to go to Europe, or I'm going to go to Asia, or I'm going to add this whole new product for the same customer base, or we're going to sell this product for another use case for a whole new other customer type. And you need to prioritize very deliberately. And the way I like to prioritize is, typical RICE score, which is how many people it's going to reach, right? What is the impact to my business? What is my confidence? And what is the effort involved? If there's massive effort involved, then you got to compare, right? But the thing is, the key thing here is not to distract the VPs who are scaling your business, the Navy, because they're used to scaling, doing one thing really well. They're not used to trying new things and figuring that out, right? And you then, as a founder, I feel, need to do a skunk works to figure out the next set of things that'll explode the growth of your company. And honestly, as you go from validation to product market fit to product channel fit and scale, time is your biggest leverage. Individual contributor, you're trying to do everything. Then you hire managers to give you capacity. Then you become a manager. You've hired individual contributors. Now you go from manager to being a VP, and you've actually hired managers to manage the individual contributors. And then you become a C-suite. You got VPs managing VPs managing managers who are managing ICs, and you're like, now again going back to being a founder. I think, being a founder, you're always on this journey to inject new risk in the business. Pain is the precondition for growth. You don't grow if you don't inject new risk in the business. And so time, honestly, everyone says money, money, money. Why does a company need capital? To buy resources? What do resources do? It gives you leverage. Money is not the only way to create leverage, right? What if you look at every part of your business that's costing you time, and you figure out how to optimize it to get more time in your day that gives you leverage? So a perfect example is, I live in Dubai, but I split my time between San Francisco and Dubai. Dubai is a place that's designed like a resort, right? It gives you time in your day. You don't do any chores as a couple. Like, why do couples fight? Because they do chores. They fight over who does chores. My wife's an ER physician. I'm an entrepreneur. You fight over chores. Now, here, living in Dubai, all the chores are done for you. You don't have to grocery shop, pick, drop, pack. None of that. It's all done for you. Household help, everything. US, that's hard to come by. So then, in addition to managing our business or work, we're also commuting, and we're like doing chores, and that sucks the life out of you. Now, if you take that equation, you've created so much time in your day that you can focus on high value stuff. Now, I don't know if money changed that or location changed that. It's a combination, right? Because this whole service driven culture is built into the way people live here, and it's significantly cheaper than the US. So it's like you got to find the right arbitrage for yourself to give you more time in your day. If you have more focused time, you can do more high value things.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's so much that to take away from there and so many routes I can go down. I think I'll come back to that point around the leverage of your time and essentially how you can allocate money to buy more time and some of the good ways to do that. Before I do, I want to go back to when you were talking through those 4 stages. I was reflecting on what you were sharing in terms of where the time is often wasted and where people should be spending their time in each of those stages. And it occurred to me that the way that you described it, it's almost like there are, of course, places, activities where you can waste your time. But actually, I think most of the wasted time is down to the business leader spending their time on either something that comes later that it's just too early. So, for example, you mentioned about building the product before you've done validation, or trying to come up with various marketing channels before you've got one channel working, or trying to expand to other segments before you've got one channel working for a
Exactly.
segment that works. And so
Or in the case of, what happened during COVID times, right?
yeah,
Is people raised at unicorn valuations, and they needed to meet those valuations because they were always like based on futures. And so they created a hiring plan to help them get the growth so they could meet those valuations. And it wasn't like I hired because I'm out of capacity, but I
yeah.
hired to meet a future goal. And again, if you don't have it figured out, that hiring is an experiment then.
Yes. Yeah, and I see that a lot with those funded businesses where money is thrown in, and often it's talked about like because of the way in which funding has to work and the various tax saving schemes and whatever, like that money has to be spent quickly. And so essentially, like I suppose it's almost like the theory is if I build the whole ship, then when we work out where we're going, then at least it'll already be built. And so, as you say, like the tech stack that's recommended by the VCs or hiring a load of people. But I think the reality is in most of this, those are decisions that need to happen later. And those are the way in which this ship is built will depend on where you're going and how you split it. And I think, as you say, then that just becomes an experiment, but a really expensive one for everyone involved. And I think for those of us that have gone down bootstrap routes, like that's a luxury we can't afford. But I think even it's a very stressful route if you've taken on funding to then be spending money on things that are just not proven and that you've not done those things. And so I think that's
But that's a cycle, right, Alexis?
yeah.
Because the cycle here is this: it's a dance you do to get the money at the high valuation.
Mm,
But what people don't realize is when you make these tall claims and convince the investor that you can meet the valuation, you actually got to do the work,
yeah.
right? Because if you don't meet that valuation and you run out of money trying or spend a lot of money trying, and let's say you need to raise money again, you will not be at that valuation. You'll have a down round and you will decrease your stake in your own company. And that is the reality. And the venture world is not very liquid, right? Like until there's an actual exit, somebody buys this company or this company IPOs, it's not very liquid. So it's predicated on companies raising money every so often at a higher valuation. So the value of the previous investor is made whole. Or maybe if the company is doing really well, then maybe investors have the opportunity to sell some secondary in the market. But nonetheless, it has to exit at some point. VCs raise money from institutions and wealthy investors on the promise that I'm going to deliver you an outsized return. most VCs do not liquidate a fund before they raise the next fund, right? That's the reality. I'm an LP in 10 funds, so I see this now very, very frequently. And so if they don't deliver an outsized return to an LP, then the LP is like, why would I put it in your fund? I'll just put it in the S&P 500. It averages 10%. If I'm going to lock my money for a long time horizon and it's volatile because valuations are up and up, and also the added inherent risk that most startups fail, then I want an outsized return. And so VCs don't do portfolio theory, right? They do like each company has to return the whole fund because at any given time, any one of them can fail. So everyone should be 100xer. And so that's the reality of how it operates. And so when you do this deal, you got to push. And so be very careful on what you promise to take money, because the media perpetuates the celebration when the funding is done, right? Every media like X raises Y funding for Z business, right? They don't talk about is the struggles a founder needs to go through after Y funding for Z business is in. And the reality starts after that first board meeting, and if you miss the numbers, right? So just be sure you are prepared for that journey.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I think that it links that same point around where are you spending your time, is that if you're going down that funding route, you're, to some extent, you're deciding, yeah, I'm so confident I'm going the right direction and that it's going to scale really quickly, that I'm going to get money to start building some of the stuff that I kind of don't know for sure whether I'm going to get return on it, because otherwise there are cheaper sources of capital if it's a dead cert. And so you then spend a load of time getting that funding or not getting it and going through that loop when you could be doing the time on actually what, you know, the validation or the proof or whatever. And so it strikes me that you've got this wasted time through doing stuff too early for where you're at. And then I like some of the examples you gave of actually where the next source of wasted time is spending time on things that you should be letting go. So you mentioned as you go up to manager, you need to be letting go of the individual contributor stuff. So it's almost like when we're talking about where you're spending your time, aside from just procrastinating, your biggest waste of time is either doing stuff too early or continuing to do stuff where you need to be moving on to the next area, which I guess is why often it can feel tough, right? It's because it's always a moving picture. Like it's not always, you can't just walk into any business and say, you should be spending time on this without understanding the context, and it changes over time. However, I'm sure there are also some areas where you have wasted your time and money that isn't maybe not even about being too early or being too late. What are some of those examples that either you regret or you just look back on and go, oh, I wish I hadn't like that?
I think I stretched being an individual contributor too long, right? I didn't bring bandwidth for me. Like I think for the longest time, I was even editing stupid event videos because it feels so good that you're so good at doing it. And a lot of this is eventually you get to a realization that it's not the highest leverage thing you're doing. Look at whatever you're doing and ask yourself, is this the highest leverage thing I can do to grow my business? And then don't do it if it's not, right? Like your job as a founder is to grow the value of the company. Editing videos may be down that food chain or things like that, right? And usually for a founder that is evangelizing the company, talking to customers, closing big deals. If you're a venture-backed company, then it's building investor relationships. So investor relationships, customer relationships, media relationships, employee relationships, in that circle. You're building that community. That is most of it. And then you're spending time on product and vision. That's the highest leverage thing you can do. And recruiting. Those 5-6 things, right? Yep. Effectively.
And so you feel like you spent you spent too long doing the doing. Are there any other examples of along your journey where you kind of feel like, yeah, I then fell into this particular trap or spent money on this or invested in something that you shouldn't have had or whatever?
Oh, yeah, you know what? I'll get into it. So like, from a founder perspective, I think I did all doing for a long time as a function
Mhm.
of bootstrap. You're always like a little penny wise, pound foolish. Oh,
Yeah.
I'll do this to save the cost so
Mm.
I don't have to pay for that thing. But sometimes paying for that thing is the wise thing to do because it short term costs you money, but long term you could sign 2, 3 clients or do something significant that'll grow your business. So I did a lot of that, I think. Nonetheless, our business became successful and we bootstrapped it to 10 plus. So it was painful trying to be an individual contributor. On the other side, then we sold 52% of the company, came into money because we had bootstrap. My co-founder and I still own nearly 40% of the
Yeah.
company. We're board members. But after departing the day-to-day of the business, I felt like, like how a new player comes into money, basketball player or a rapper comes into money, and enamored by the unicorn porn in the sort of 2020, late 2020, 2021. I was enamored and made a number of frivolous angel investments and mostly in friends companies. I think I did like something like 18 startups in a short time, and I did VCs, venture capital funds. Eventually my banker called my wife and said, tell him to stop, right? And I, through a very well renowned angel investor in Silicon Valley, I also got to speak with his financial advisor. And basically the advice I got was, man, you won the lottery and you're buying more lottery tickets. Nobody does that, right? And I came to realize, man, it all depends on the kind of life you want to live.
Mm.
Okay. The funding decision you take, whether in your company, is a lifestyle decision. If you take it is a lifestyle decision. So if you can come into money and you say, oh, you know what, I'm going to take it all or take a big portion of it, I'm going to do angel investing, just know that most startups fail. And when you're angel investing at the early stages. They're not a liquid asset, right? Number two. Number three, if you need this money, because they're not liquid, if you need this money at some point, luckily I didn't need it, but I just wrote it off mentally as gambling, right? And just try to be helpful with the founders. But a lot of people, they put this as like the stupid title, like they have some disposable income from their salary, and they put themselves as angel investor and start going around writing $10,000, $20,000 checks, and then they feel cramped because they need this money. It's the dumbest thing you can do. It's not liquid, number one. Number two, it's high failure rate. Number three, it's a volatile, meaning valuations are up and freaking down in a massive way. And number four, if you foresee needing this money for a house or school payment or some rainy day, don't ever do it. I know it sounds cool to say you're an angel investor in the community. You know what? Never build society's definition of success. This is the quickest way to bring stress on your life and fail, right? And so whether it's taking money into your business or becoming an angel investor, how you handle your money is a lifestyle decision, right? You take VC money, but you know what? You want to nomad around the world. How are you going to do it? You can't, right? You decide to become an angel investor and then you realize you've locked up your liquidity for 10 years.
Yeah.
So how you and if you want to hang out in Bali for the next 10 years, then cash is king. So why invest in angel, right? Invest in like a dividend paying, cash flowing asset, you know? So I think those are the mistakes I think I made. And I don't consider them significant mistakes because they're learning. Like I didn't go off the rails like that they destroyed my life, right? It
No.
was a small portion of my assets that I did. But I see a lot of people make this mistake that they completely go nuts, right? And see, I think ultimately you got to look at yourself and ask, what is my personal definition of success? It's never money, man. Money has become this, I don't know, we've normalized as the West the chase for money as a moving target, right? Think about how we live in the West. We are so proactive with our work to please that boss, but we're not proactive with our health or our
Mm.
families. We can't afford to live where we work, so we live a little far. We say we'll buy a little bigger house. Everything comes from a negotiable. And now that you live far, now you got to wake up early, pick, pack, drop your kids, go to work, and sit in that awful commute, whether it's a train or it's a car, come back, get your kids ready for dinner, bed, then you catch up on email. This is how you live. Okay. Maybe you have just enough energy to have one nice dinner on the weekend. And then like Sunday is gone in other like practice and chores, Costco. This is how you live your life. And because you are so busy, just one, think about it, one decision of not living next to work and living like can put you in a commute of 3 hours. You've literally taken 3 hours of your life, and that's not 3 hours actually. Commuting for 2.5, 3 hours creates twice as much of tiredness in your brain that you don't have the energy for anything. And now, as a function of this, you're not thoughtful about your health because you don't have time to work out. Right? You're like, oh, I'll come back and do it. And then you're like tired. Okay, I'll do it tomorrow. And you're not thoughtful about what you eat. So you like pick some processed garbage from the shelf, which if you read the ingredients, it's all ultra processed food. And this is what you're eating most of the time, right? Seed oils, ultra processed food. And you go about life this way. And then you retire at 65 and you die at 78 or 79, which is a life expectancy. So you have what, 11, 12 years to live. And so you go from the tax system to the hospital system. Think very deliberately about the decisions you make, if they're going to bring you joy or not. We always think, especially as founders, oh, you know what? I'll make some money and then I'll change. You never change, man. More so as an entrepreneur, your work is your life. It's not work-life balance, okay? We're work-life integration. The compound interest on not prioritizing the things that let you run the marathon of life and business is going to be death. If you wake up and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to start my day by working out. And you know what? I'm not going to commute. Yes, it's going to be expensive, but I'll live in the city. Or guess what? This is the way actually my wife showed me. Because she was a medical resident and I was an entrepreneur. And she fought me tooth and nail to hire a full-time nanny. And I'm like, how the hell are we going to afford it? She's like, you know what will happen is we will optimize for that 1-2 vacations a year to Hawaii or Cabo. But until that vacations come, we'll fight to the point of divorce because I'm an ER doc and you're an entrepreneur. And having kids and running the family is a lot of chores. So who's going to do it? So it's an investment, right? Anything that gives you time in your day is an investment. Think about that for a second. Everyone views money as success. Money is not success, man. And society has normalized sort of money as a moving target. Okay, you make 1, then you go to 5, then you go to 10, then you go to, and then this way you keep paying your mental dues to the tax system, and then you pay your health dues to the hospital system, and you're gone. At 65, you're not functional. So you kept moving this target. Why not integrate the things that bring you joy? And the things that bring you joy are not money. Now, I'm not saying money is the root of all evil. Money is great so long as it buys you the things that bring you joy. And usually that is freedom, right? Freedom to do what you want, where you want, with whom you want, when you want, in your prime, in your time. So I view anything that gives me more time in my day as an investment because time is my greatest asset. So that could be a nanny, that could be a driver, that could be living where I work. All of those things may be expensive, but the amount of leverage it gives me enables me to spend more time with my family, spend more time eating healthy, spend more time working out, spend more time on doing high value stuff in the business. And that exponentially increases the quality of my life.
Love that. I think that's so important. And I love the way you put that, Lloyd. And I know it's funny. I know from the conversations we've had outside this recording that when you're talking about if you are doing a 3-hour commute and if you are eating poorly and so on, I know that those are all very specific examples of what you've done, right? Those are all things that you've been in that situation. And I know that for you, one of a life-changing kind of wake-up call for you was sat in a hospital bed thinking you're going to die, right? How much perspective did that give you, and how would you help other business business owners, entrepreneurs realize that without having that, that near death moment? What would be how you try and explain it to them?
Definitely. So what happened was all my life I chased and chased and chased the society's definition of success. I seem like a wild sage right now. Like,
Yeah.
not right. I talked about frameworks in business, in personal life. It wasn't like that. When we were in the thick of things, it's like, geez, throwing spaghetti on the wall, and it's like, God, make something work. And so we chased. And during the pandemic, growth equity firm bought half the company and went from not having significant money and living on wife's payroll for a very long time, who's a physician, to coming into a lot of liquidity, right? Life changed. But thereafter, a few weeks later, I almost died of COVID. I was hospitalized for Omicron. My wife, being a physician at Stanford, couldn't see me. I'm sitting in the hospital looking at this 24/7 Zoom where family members around are tuning in and crying, etc. And I said to myself, what good is any of this money?
Mm.
Like, literally, I did not prioritize the things that brought me joy to focus on the business, because the business also gave me so much joy, this chase, that I neglected family and health and friends and ate whatever and drank whatever to keep me alive. Life and business is a marathon, not a sprint, right? And I am now a big advocate for work life integration. Everyone says work life balance. Work life balance is bullshit, right? It's bullshit because for entrepreneurs, your business is your life, man. That's the reality. You don't become an entrepreneur to do work life balance.
Mm.
So you need work life integration. You need to integrate the things that bring you joy in your daily life, and usually knock those things out first thing in the morning. Wake up,
Yeah.
exercise releases endorphins in your brains that calms the feeling of stress. You may be losing in business every day, but if you don't, the gym is one place where you can feel you're winning every day, right? Because you can lift a heavier weight and you're like pumped, and then that energy manifests very positively as you take on the rest of the day.
Mm.
Have breakfast with your kids, say goodbye to them, right? Those kinds of things. Integrate the things that bring you joy and take time for them. If you can't take 3, 4, 5 hours for yourself out of a 24-hour day, then is this business really worth doing? Like, if a business is going to fail because you took an hour and a half to go to the gym and like another 2 hours to spend time with family and put your kids to sleep, but the compound interest on not doing that for a long time is dread, right? I'm fortunate my kids were young and likely they won't remember, but it was a very big lesson. My daughter, who was 8, post that COVID incident, 7.5 or so, she said a very profound thing to me. She's like, Dad, why don't you just get a job somewhere and not be an entrepreneur and not do this startup stuff? At least if you work for somebody else, you'll spend more time with us. Right. So I think, kids watch your actions, right? And just make sure everything you're doing is very deliberate. The funding choice you make, the business choice you make is a life choice you make. If you think work life balance exists, it doesn't. We talk so much about this. It doesn't exist. Come on. Forget, I'm talking about entrepreneurs, but any professional, ambitious professional, work life balance doesn't exist for them.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on. You've got to integrate it in, and I like the fact that you talk about integrating it in early in the day. It reminds me of the kind of principle for the Covey principle of rocks in first. It's like find the most important things, make sure that they're in the plan and they get done first, because otherwise they won't find the room. And I think that's absolutely spot on. So I love that. Unfortunately, we're timing out, but thank you so much, Lloyd, for your time. Your insight and experience on this area is just so vast, and it's been great to get to know you and to talk to you today. I highly recommend getting Lloyd's new book, which is called From Grassroots to Greatness, 13 Rules to Build Iconic Brands with Community-Led Growth, which is a Wall Street Journal bestseller. You can also check him out on Instagram, Lloyed Lobo. I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes. You've got your community, tractionconf.io, and your business, Boast.AI. Any other resources?
That's it. I used to write a lot on LinkedIn
Yeah.
until 6 months ago. And then after the book became a bestseller, I took a sabbatical. My wife's been a great support through my journey. She turns 40 in a few months. And I think 5 months ago, I turned personal trainer just for her. And I said, you know what? I'm going to help you through this transformation. I had a phenomenal transformation. It's pinned to my LinkedIn, to my Instagram, and you can see my journey as a stressed out Silicon Valley entrepreneur to now what it is, and how after my COVID, I turned a leaf, right? I think at 44, I have a six pack or an eight pack and all of those things. And so I said, you know what? My wife's had a busy life, and she's been my closest person in life. And so now I'm going to help her with her transformation. So I've been spending the last 5 months actually sort of transforming her in public for accountability and going through workouts and everything. And it's brought me great joy. I think, as I look into the future, the journey as a founder for me is not over. But I think, if you want to go far, you go with a team. If you want to go fast, you go alone. And that journey is usually small, right? Like, marathon versus a sprint. And so, like, if I have to ever do a startup again, I would love to work with my wife. She's brilliant. She's very planned and organized, and I'm the sort of hustling entrepreneur kind. If I have to spend the next 10 years doing another thing, I'd rather work with my wife, because we were dating since high school. I was her prom date. And I think the last 10, 12 years of doing business, and we got into it right after we got married, right? She became a physician in ER, which is busy, and I went into entrepreneurship. I think it took away some of that life, and now it feels like we're dating again, given how much time we have in our day. Like, deliberate lifestyle choice of moving to Dubai and spending the whole year here. We can service-driven economy, and you don't have to cook, clean, pick after yourself, drive. Everything is done for you. So it gives you so much time that, like, we spend time together, like dating. So I said, hey, if I have to spend the rest of my life, another 10 years, starting building a company, I'd rather do it with you. So this is the step one towards evangelizing her to see if we can work together. So my posts are all fitness and some business on Instagram, but the personal side of an entrepreneur.
Love it. That's awesome. Well, I'll make sure we've got links in the show notes to all of those, and make sure that people check them out and get the book, Lloyd. But you've been absolutely awesome. I'll also include a link to a resource for people, because one of the things that occurs to me is we talked about the journey, and one of the ways in which people end up wasting time is that they're doing the things that they need to be letting go of. You talked about
or they're doing the things they need to be letting go of, number one, or they're doing things that make them feel will get them the outcome, right? Success is doing one or two things consistently well over time, not doing many, 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 many things. So either they're doing the things they should have been letting go of, or they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing versus going all in, right? Focus. It's better to be an inch wide or a mile deep. And the last one is they're handling tomorrow's problems today. I signed up for $1 billion valuation. Hence, I need to hire X people to focus on these set of things to deliver that. Like, coming from a place of fear. Oh, if I don't do that today, right? So, for example, if somebody has come and told you that, oh, you know what, you need to have a LinkedIn presence, and like now you start writing all this content on LinkedIn, you're worrying it. Yeah, you're worrying about it, and you're spending energy on it. When you don't have resources and your product is barely at product market fit. So what are you trying to do here, right? Yes, if you have spare time, do those things. Or you're spending time on Instagram, but all your customers, you sell your product to manufacturing companies in like Michigan or in their 60s, right? Like, it's a whole different user group. So I think everything stems from your customer. So doing things ahead of time, like worrying about scale when you don't need to, when you need to nail, and not letting go when the time is right.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, speaking to that, letting go of some of the tasks that, once you've proven things, like, for example, you've got your messaging working, you've got sales working, or you've got delivery working. I think one of the most important things is getting those things handed over. We've got a 4-stage guide on how to do that people can find at airmanual.link/discover. I'll make sure that there's a link to that in the show notes as well. But otherwise, Lloyd, you've been incredible. Thank you for being such an amazing guest. Thank you for sharing your insights today. I really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Alexis. Love and peace, brother. Hope this was good.
It's been incredible. Thank you so much. And for everyone else, show us that it's been incredible and really valuable and good. Please do hit like, hit subscribe, share it on social media, tag us in. Lloyd and I would love to hear about, what were some of the key takeaways for you? What did you find most useful? It'd be really useful for us to see that, but also helps other people as well. But otherwise, thank you so much, Lloyd, for joining me, and to everyone else, until next time, have fun.
Until next time, brother. Love and peace.